Let's finish off the Clippers, the younger players, Ivica Zubac, all your Cam Christie news. It's coming. Mick Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, also known as a ninja robot fighting a vampire tape recorder in Stonehenge. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. We're banging through the rest of the team review shows. Clippers and then Nuggets following this. NBA draft is next week. There's a live show. I'm not sure that you heard. Wednesday, 25th of June, 8 p.m. Eastern, live on this channel. We'll chop it up. We'll be in the chat. We'll be live as picks happen. We'll debate who will destroy picks. We'll praise picks. We'll be wrong. We'll be right. We'll have tears. I'll lick them off your face. All of that stuff is coming up. We are talking Clippers, so we might as well get into the rest of the Clippers. Yesterday we did the 29 and overs on the Clippers because they are, I think, the oldest team that I've done so far. I'm not sure. I think, are they the oldest team in the NBA? They probably are. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. Let's talk about someone who's actually under 29 on this team who was unbelievable during the season, and that's Ivica Zubac. For a while, we've always been interested in Zubac, or I have anyway, as an analyst, back before his draft year. Thought he was underplayed for the Lakers. I thought that it was annoying that Ty Lue wouldn't play him good minutes for the Clippers. And this season, I was more into it. I was like, okay, they don't have that ability to go small that Ty Lue loves, because the way they went small is by having Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the court. And they didn't have that. And they had no reliable backup center, unless you count Mo Bamba as that, which you shouldn't. Or you shouldn't have. Anyway, and it seemed like it was a real opportunity for Zubac to play a lot more minutes. So I was relatively aggressive. I'm not going to say that I was, all over it and the greatest draft pick that I've ever made or anything like on those lines. But I was relatively in on grabbing Ivica Zubac in fantasy drafts this year. But as often happens when you look at breakouts and target them, you don't want to go too crazy on it, right? You don't want to go too hard on it because you end up getting wrong a lot of the time. He was way better than I thought. Now, in the end, I had him ranked 70th in the preseason. He finished 66th, and he is going to be one of those players again that Yahoo 9-cat total numbers are going to blow smoke up your ass, because he was ranked 9th. Now, that is clearly garbage. Right? That is just not a realistic representation of the value of where Zubac was this season or moving forward. He played 80 games. He played 33 minutes. He's 28. He had a 20 usage. He averaged 17 and 13. They're good numbers. He shot 63 from the field. That's very good. But nothing else is good. No threes. 2.7 assists. 0.7 steals. Only 1.1 blocks. And bad free throws. Now, he was somehow much better in the second half of the season once Kawhi returned. They bumped his usage. They bumped his minutes up. He was having lots of 20 and 10 games. He was amazing. He was, I think, one of the best three defenders in the NBA probably all season. I think he made an all-defense first team. I don't really remember off the top of my head. But it is going to be a really interesting way that people view Zubac next season. Will they look at that 9th ranking on Yahoo and think that he's a third-round guy? That's, to me, a very clear stay away. Will he go in the 70s? That's nice. That's value. But you're not going to get the numbers that you got last season in terms of the ability to bump up, get the value. You're not going to be able to pick him at 110. Get an ADP Zubac of, actually 84 it came into, and bring that in 2, 3, 4 rounds. But one of the players to be very cautious of, very strong rebounds, very strong field goals, above average blocks, and everything else below average or actually bad. So be very cautious of that. Is he the 9th ranked player? You all know the answer to that. It is easy to say 17 and 13 is great because it is. But 16.8 points per game is below average for a fantasy league. So while we love what he did, this was the opportunity for him to step up, and he did it. We should be more focused next season on finding who the next Ivica Zubac is versus going back to the Ivica Zubac. Because if you have to take him in round 4, it's not going to be good for you. It won't be bad for you, but it won't be good for you. And maybe you consider something not being bad as being good, and that is okay as well. But like a theme that I've had probably over the last week or so doing these shows, is if you hit value on every pick, you won't win a league. You'll be good, but you won't win. If your first round pick is a first rounder, if your third round pick is a third rounder, if your fifth round pick is a fifth rounder, if your seventh round pick is a seventh rounder, if your 10th round pick is a ninth rounder, you won't win. You'll be very good. What you need is your first, second, third, fourth to return value. You need your 7th to be a third rounder. You need your 10th to be an 8th rounder. You need your 12th to be a 7th rounder. Then you win. So there's always the traps on the guys that he carried me last season. He was so good. Yeah, because you got 30 spots of value. So again, not to hate on Zubac. I think he's awesome. I think he's actually finally fulfilled the value that I think he can bring. And honestly, it is possible that he averages 19 and 12 next season. He was great down the stretch. He was 31st post-trade deadline. Remember, post-trade deadline numbers are a little wonky because of a lot of teams not really trying. But Zubac played 33 minutes overall. Could he play 34? Could their usage go to 22? That is all possible. And maybe he is like a top 50 guy overall next season or top 40 maybe. But I think if you're taking him around 3 or 4, it just... I don't know how you get better than that, to be honest. I don't know how he goes ahead of that. Let's talk about Ben Simmons, who was on this team after he was on Brooklyn, and he was someone that I did get wrong from a per-game perspective. I thought that he'd have a decent enough role in Brooklyn. I actually thought he could be around a top 100 player. I wouldn't have drafted him there, but on a per-game basis, I thought top 100 was possible. And just way wrong. Just massively wrong on that. He has lost so much of the juice that he used to have. He's 29 now, Ben. He had 13 usage. And in the past, he's been a low-usage guy, but he's had years of 18, 19 usage. And I thought on the Nets team, it might bump up a little bit, but it appears that that level of aggression doesn't exist anymore. Now, despite all of that, despite me saying that it was bad that I had him at 100, he was 134th. Right, so I wouldn't say that it was a complete disaster. It was pretty bad. Largely because he only played 51 games and he only averaged 21 points. And you can see the impact deltas are terrible because he did decline a lot. He still generated pretty good assist numbers and pretty good rebounds. For a guy playing 22 minutes to get 5 rebounds and 5.5 assists, it's pretty good. Amazingly, he hit 73% from the line. And I say that's amazing because this is a man that was like a 55, 61 guy for a long period of time. His passing volume is still really high. I think at the moment, part of the issue with Simmons is he's just lost for position. Is he a point guard? Is he a backup center? Because they're very different roles. He could easily come back, play 22 minutes a night, being ranked 134th, is actually really good. Because we go, well, if he got more minutes, we'd be loving it. But I think the ability for him to get more minutes doesn't exist anymore. I don't think he's ever going to be a 26-minute-a-night player. So I think anything in terms of Simmons and 12-team appeal is done. But if by any chance injuries or whatever happens, we see a small role where he pushes to 27, the rebounding's still good. The assists, still good. The steals, not bad. Not great, but not bad. Like 1 steal a game. Somehow his free throws were fine. Above average field goals. Not bad. So while it's very easy for people to make jokes about Ben Simmons, I understand all that. And it wasn't a great season. I don't think it was as bad as maybe we think it is. So much is going to depend on where he ends up. I do think he'll probably be back with the Clippers. But when we don't care about him for 12-team leagues or 14-team leagues or even in Dynasty, he's 29 already. So we'll just see where it goes. But yeah, he was never going to be back to what he was. But there were some flashes to suggest that it was one of his better recent seasons. And again, that is not saying very much, but it did happen. We'll come back to talk about some more of these Clippers guys. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by the Game Time app. The NBA Finals. We might have one more game left. The intensity, the big moments, offensive, defensive plays, the comebacks, it's all there. And the best thing for you to do with the NBA Finals is get there to watch them live. And that's where Game Time helps. Prices on the Game Time app actually drop closer to tip-off. Those killer last-minute deals, you've got the panoramic seat views, no surprise fees. Game Time is a total game changer. They have so many different things there, plus the Game Time guarantee, which means that you know that you're getting the best deal. So if you find a better price in the same row or section, and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. I've also got NFL tickets available already. The schedule's already been released, so you know those games. You got Major League Baseball, you got the All-Star break coming up there, so maybe you go see some of those events or just the regular season action. Get into those if you're in Oklahoma City or Indiana for Game 6. You can get some tickets for the NBA Finals as well, and take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's get into talking about some more of these Clippers players. We've done Zubac. We've talked about Ben Simmons. Let's talk about Derrick Jones, who I believe doesn't go by Junior anymore, so it's just Derrick Jones now. One of those guys who does get the occasional bump in people's consciousness. He wasn't drafted in any leagues. He has a Yahoo 9Cat total ranking of 118th, which again, lol. He had a 17 usage after signing with the Clippers after being a key part of the Mavericks, and there were some people who did think that he could jump in and replace Paul George and be maybe a draftable guy. That very clearly didn't happen. Not many people thought that. It wasn't a thing that happened all over the shop. But he was, I think, overall relatively disappointing. I don't know that... I guess it depends where your expectation was. He played 24 minutes a night. He started at times. He lost the starting spot at times. He was 171st before the deadline, 289th after it, when they lent more into Chris Dunn and then Bogdanovic arrived and Kawhi was back. He shot 53 from the field. He shot 36 from 3. They're pretty good numbers. But one of the things that Derrick Jones used to do as a player was be a high field goal percentage guy because he was a strong finisher at the rim and a really good shot blocker. His rim contest percentile, 26th percentile, is bad. He blocked 0.4 shots, which is bad. I don't know, but Darko suggests he was in the 80th percentile for improvement. I don't know that that's true. I mean, it is based on their metrics, but if I'm just basing it on gut feel of what I thought Jones was, and I look at Drip's Delta, which is 7th percentile, I think it's more that, he was actually worse for the Clippers than he was for the Mavs. He has settled into a rotation level forward, which is what he is, but he's an incredibly low volume guy who doesn't pass. The steals are nice in 24 minutes, but there's not much else going on with Derrick Jones. And at 28 years of age, this is probably the best we get. Because we saw last season, even with Kawhi out for half the season, it wasn't like Jones was a must-roster player. He had little moments, but he'd play okay, then he'd get benched for Amir Coffey, and then Chris Dunn would play, and then somebody else would be in there. He doesn't do enough. He doesn't have scalability or rampability to be able to do more in certain spots. And one of the key things that Jones used to bring was his ability to protect the rim and to generate blocks. And that doesn't happen anymore. So we're out. Amir Coffey has been a Clippers legend. I know you might say that doesn't really mean anything or who cares, but he's just always been around. And whatever iteration of the Clippers team is here, he's 28 now. He's been one of those guys that came from an undrafted player. They worked into a rotation player. He played 24 minutes a night. Now, his fantasy value is not superb, but he hit 41% on his threes. And he's just, again, a useful player who is someone that, he's not going to be like, I'm fighting all the time for more minutes. Give me a bigger role. I deserve it. Which, I guess, internally, he probably feels that. But, if you're the 11th man, he's okay with it. If you need him to start, he'll do it. You need him to take on some shots, he'll do it. You need him to defend, he'll do it. And that sort of guy is a really invaluable piece. We'll see what they do in free agency with him. But a 16 usage player who averaged 10 points and 1.5 threes on 41%. He hit his free throws. He's a reliable shooter. He's a relatively solid defender. Now, you'll notice a lot of these advanced metrics are pretty down on him. Because there's not one thing where you go, that's the real standard. The shooting is good, but the volume's not super high. He defends okay without being great. He passes okay, but not much. He's not a usage guy, but he can ramp up. He's one of those players, again, schedule plus spot. Amir Coffey starting, Derrick Jones is hurt. 27 minutes for Amir, you might get 15 points and 4 threes, and you might get 3 games in a row like that. But just another one of these guys who's in that peak to back-end peak. When you're a role player and you're at 28, you're on the way down. You are ready to fold a little bit of that value down. You can see that in some of the Delta stuff there. But he's a reliable rotation player. Getting forward-sized guys is always useful, and that is what Amir Coffey is. Drew Eubanks has been a garbage time legend for a while. He was big in Portland. He was putrid in Phoenix. He went to Utah for some reason. and didn't really do much there. Then came to the Clippers as a backup center. He was okay. He played 12 minutes a game. He's also 28. He averaged 5 and 4. He averaged 0.7 blocks in 12 minutes, which you want to do the per 36 numbers, that's 2 blocks per 36. He shot 50% on 3, which doesn't matter. It's a low volume. He can test shots well. He's okay-ish. But given where he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, his ability to stuff the stat sheet isn't as high anymore. And if they do decide to bring Ben Simmons back, Eubanks won't be an every night contributor, would be my guess, because Simmons would likely be that backup center. He is still one of those guys that if we see that somebody is hurt and Eubanks is a 28-minute-a-night starter, we open our eyes because we've seen it in the past. We've seen him produce okay numbers in those roles in the past. But overall, again, it's one of those guys where on a bad team, thrived in April, March. Went to some better teams, Phoenix, and looked terrible. Settled into a backup role and was okay for the Clippers. So Eubanks, while he is okay, again, I keep using the word okay, 4 rebounds in 12 minutes, not bad. Like, they're pretty okay numbers. What could you expect from him if he played 27 minutes? 11 and 8, 1.4 blocks, 59 shooting. That's good. But no one is going to want that. No team is going to want that. So, the likelihood of that happening, it's relatively low. Jordan Miller was a second-round pick a few years ago and realistically just never got to play. Until this year, where he was on a 2-way contract and he got converted, and we started to see a little bit. Now, when I say got to play, he played 11 minutes a game in 37 games, but that is a lot for him. He only averaged 8 fantasy points with 4 points a game. He shot a putrid 21% from 3. There's just, I don't know. He's 25. There is something about Jordan Miller where I think that the Clippers is a hard team to develop on, given how old they are. There's just something about Miller where I'm like, I think he's got something. He's a pretty good defender. I think he's a better shooter than that. I think he's a solid enough rebounder. I think he's a guy that can have usage ramp, which is a term that I feel like I've made up. But like, you want him to do more, he probably can. Will it be super efficient? Probably not. But I think there's a little bit of there in him. And while we didn't really see, much from him in terms of, the numbers, aren't impressive, clearly. I think that's relatively easy to see. But I don't know. Just a few of the games that we saw from him this season made me interested. He played 7 games in the G League this season. He averaged 24 points in those games. And this is where, again, I have a little bit of faith that he's a better shooter than 21%. He shot 35% and 84 from the line. And he shot 80% from the line in the NBA. If he was 22 and doing this now, I'd be like, all right, let's see what happens the next 2 years. Maybe he can work into being an Amir Coffey type. And he still could. But he's 25. I'm not going to rule it out. Again, we haven't seen anything from him in the first few seasons. Realistically, he just hasn't barely played. But there were a few little moments from Jordan Miller where I'm not going to fully write him off as a non-contributor. For fantasy, it's probably never going to happen. There's not a real strength. There's not a good, solid baseline of multiple categories. But as a rotational piece, there is a little bit of something there. Got a few more young guys to get into in a sec, but first of all, today's episode is brought to you by OLIPOP. It's a new kind of soda, OLIPOP. It's made for people that love the classic taste of soda, but they want something that will support their health. Regular sodas, you might get 40 grams of sugar in a can of regular Coke, or Orange Fanta's got 44 grams, but OLIPOP, 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. So OLIPOP, as you know, it's reimagining soda in a way that is better for your gut. I know that my delivery of OLIPOP is on its way, and I cannot wait to try all of the different flavors they've got. There's a crispy apple flavor, I believe, that's cooking. There's the Dr. Goodwin, the Dr. Pepper replacement. That's not for me, but that's okay. Might be for you. Cherry cola, classic grape. It's all there. When you crack open that soda that you know is low in sugar and is going to support your gut health, well, there's never been a better time to get in on the old OLIPOP with OLISmart, their blend that is designed to support digestive and overall health. And you can get a free can of OLIPOP now. Just buy any 2 cans in store and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. That is drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Okay. Let's get into these last few guys on the Clippers. Some of these players you just won't have seen play. Because like I said, this is the oldest team that I've done so far in the NBA. I think they are the oldest team overall in the NBA, and some of these young guys, they're not high-profile prospects, and they just don't get run. Kobe Brown was a first-round pick a couple of years ago. I didn't love that they picked him in the first round. I didn't find he was that sort of a guy. He's one of those players that's a big-bodied four who put up some really good numbers in college, but when you looked into it, I was like, yeah, I think there's a lot of situational bump going on here. Like, he's put in this position, he's doing these sort of things with his super high usage at Missouri, and I don't know that translates, and it obviously hasn't. He was a 14% usage player this season. He was the 486th ranked player. He shot 23% from three. Now, the advanced stuff thought there was some improvement, which is fair because he just didn't do anything as a rookie, so I understand that improvement. He's relatively high on ball, 60th percentile. His rim contest numbers were okay, not that they led to blocks, but overall, this is nothing I really love there. He only played 6 games in the G League this season, Kobe Brown. He averaged 21 points and shot 37% from three on 7 attempts. So that is interesting. He did some of the stuff in the G League that he did in college. 4 assists, 1.7 steals, 37% from three. He's got that bigger body. He is 25. I do like Jordan Miller more as a prospect, but in terms of when you're looking at this team and what they need, the Clippers, his size to work as a 4, like they're playing Kawhi and Derrick Jones as 4s. So if they ever, and Nick Batum, if they ever decide they want a little bit bigger, well, Brown could do that. I think overall he's a worse player than Jordan Miller. I think overall he's probably never going to develop even into a rotation guy. So if you're considering him in dynasty formats, I wouldn't be that excited. Like, he's an older, late first-round pick who was really bumped in his numbers in college, and it hasn't translated to the NBA, and that's not a good combination. But there was at least improvement this season. Cam Christie was someone who I liked in the draft process last season. I thought he might go back to school because he was one of the youngest players in the draft. And then he went to what I think was probably the worst situation in terms of someone being able to get minutes, because the Clippers aren't going to play these guys. I think realistically, the Clippers treated this as just a full developmental year for Cam Christie, who's Max's brother, as you're well aware. And Max took a few years in the NBA to really get going as well. Christie played only 5 minutes a game. He didn't even get to, what did he get, 75 minutes? He didn't even get to 70 minutes played for the season. He ranked 519th. He had 21 usage with 1 point per game. He shot 29 from the field and 15 from three. They're obviously numbers that are terrible, like very clearly terrible. You can see that Darko had him 86th percentile in Delta because he started poorly and he got better. I think it is instructive to look at some of his G League stuff, and while it's okay, I won't say it's good. 30% on threes on 7 attempts. I like the 7 attempts. 81 from the line, 2 attempts, whatever. 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 40% overall. All that's pretty bad. Part of the issue with Christie, I thought he could come in, I thought he could be a really good shooter. But part of the issue with his overall game is I don't know what else he does. Will he be a steals guy, an assists guy, a rebounds guy? Will he get to the line? I think the answer to all of that is no. What he has to be is a high-volume 3-point gunner. And obviously 15% doesn't cut it, and 30% of the G League doesn't cut it. But he's really young. He was, I think, 18 when he was drafted. He turned 19 before the season. He's going to be 20 soon. He is probably not going to play at all this upcoming season either, and he probably does need to find his way onto a different team. And it's always been the way with these Clippers guys, these later round picks for the Clippers, that usually they find their way, if they're going to have any success, on a different team, like Reggie Bullock, a name that really comes to mind. Someone that had played about 4 minutes combined in 3 years for the Clippers and then went and had a pretty solid career. Christie needs to develop more strength and give us something else that's not shooting, because the shooting may not come. And that's okay. I've got a little bit of faith in him. The Clippers' selection or collection of two-way guys is very strange. Did you know that Patrick Baldwin was on this team as a two-way guy? Who started in Golden State, was traded as part of the Jordan Poole deal to Washington, had a few opportunities at the end of last season playing for the Wizards when they had nobody out there and he really was bad, and then somehow ended up with the Clippers on a two-way. He's still only 22. He played 4 minutes a game and averaged 2 points and shot 57% from three. Of course, on limited attempts. But I've seen enough of Baldwin now. I've seen him get opportunities and struggle. He's someone who comes in with maybe he blocks shots and shoots threes. He's a tall forward who can switch and do all that. No, I don't buy it at all. Now, 56% from three is elite, clearly. But 50% from the line suggests he might be bad. And this is such a small sample that I don't think there's any real value in looking at Patrick Baldwin and thinking that he's going to be developing into an into an NBA rotation caliber player. I am basically out on him. Trenton Flowers also was a two-way guy on this team. Baldwin does have a two-way for next season. Flowers does not. Flowers came down to the NBL in his draft year and played point guard for the Adelaide 36ers for a bit and then left. It's a really weird situation for him. He just never played. He didn't register a single assist, steal, or block this season. He shot 36% from the field and averaged 2 points. Like, we just didn't see him. So, what do we judge on that? Now, he was a highly regarded recruit that was going to play for Louisville, then he pulled out, came to Australia, pulled out of there, and we didn't see anything from him again. He's got decent size. I don't think he can be a point guard. I think he might be able to have some secondary ball handling as a point forward, maybe. But, I can't judge anything on his NBA time. In the G League, he only attempted 4 threes a game, which is a little disappointing. Now, he hit him, 39%, but he played 31 minutes. He averaged 2 assists with 2 turnovers, so that's not good. Overall, nothing that I'm excited about. Nothing really at all. They do have one more player on a two-way who didn't play a single game all season despite, I think, being on 2 teams, and that's Seth Lundy, who was with the Atlanta Hawks and then is on the Clippers on a 2-year two-way for next season. But he didn't play a single second in the NBA all season, Seth Lundy, so I don't have a graphic for him. Just in case you're aware, I don't think we need to care about Seth Lundy. He's a shooter from Penn State, I believe, who we just haven't really seen play in the NBA much at all. He didn't even play a G League game. I think he must have tore his ACL, maybe? Anyway, his first year in the G League, he averaged 20 points a game on 40% from 3 on 9 attempts. So just a little something to look at for Lundy as a long-range volume gunner. Again, it's the Clippers. It probably isn't going to matter. What is going to matter is that it's the end of the show. We'll be back later with a show on the Denver Nuggets and their fantasy season review stuff. So the best way to not miss out on that is to subscribe. And you leave your comments and you tell us all about your thoughts on Trenton Flowers. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.